Hey, it's Nick Thorne, and today I'm down at SHQ Boardsports in Sandringham in the good city of Melbourne, and I've got one of the foiling experts with me, Saunders I. If you're a beginner and you want to get into wing foiling, then this is the video for you. We're going to cover all the gear that you need to get into wing foiling. We're going to start off with the board. So let's jump into how do we choose a board for a beginner. Let's say I'm 80 kilos.
Yeah.
I want to get the right board for me. I want to get one I can use for a bit of time.
Perfect.
How do I choose that?
Yeah, so this is a conversation we're having sort of 3 to 5 times a day. And the main thing that we try and figure out is what background do you have? Have you never done water sports before? Have you been sitting in isolation at home watching all people go off on wing foiling, which is kind of what we did. But if you have a windsurfing, a kite surfing, or a SUP background, it's a little bit of a different conversation, but there's still some foundation principles that unfortunately you can't skip and go straight to the tiny 5.0 board. We all got to do our time on that beginner's package, knock out a few walk of shame. So ideally we take your body weight and we're going to add 40 litres, kind of as the bare minimum really. If it's a bit bigger, that's totally fine.
If I'm 80 kilo as an example and you had your rule, the 40 litre rule, that would mean I'm looking for about a 120 litre rule.
Correct.
Or 120 litre board.
That's a really good place to start. Your next question is you can get 120 litres in multiple different sizes. So if you, for example, look at this Quattro, it's 6.0, so quite a small board in terms of wing, but it's 130 litres. So that's, another 10 litres on top of what you're going to need. A little extra positive buoyancy is a good thing in terms of releasing from the water nice and early. The question is, a shorter board is going to yaw left and right a lot more, and when you're learning to get on your knees, you might need something with 120, 130 litres, but more towards your 6'11" by 30 inches, a longer platform, just giving you more stability. It is kind of nice to have a big board where essentially you're not starting from your knees. You can actually stand up on your board, pull your wing, same as windsurfing, uppulling, pull your wing up out of the water and ride away. It's just a more stable platform.
Enjoy the process, enjoy the sport a whole lot more if you start with a bigger board. You can get on foil, you can learn to fly that foil, and then you can progress to a smaller board maybe within 6 months or a year.
All right, Nick, so we've discussed beginner's board. What's really important is the hydrofoil under it. So what we're going to do is talk about body weight to foil ratio for beginners really. I'm a big fan of recommending a foil based on surface area. So an 80 kilo guy, I'm looking at the 1800 to 2000 square centimetre foil for the front wing.
Yeah, that's
for the front wing. Yeah. You've got the cord to wingtip ratio, so the higher aspect gives you really good pump and glide, generally faster. When you're first learning to hydrofoil, when you come up on foil, speed is not a problem. When you come up on foil, you're accelerating, you're doubling your speed. So it may be something that you want to go faster down the track, but initially if you're new to hydrofoiling, you won't want to go so fast because it makes things harder because it's twitchier on foil.
So the front foil determines the speed as well. So there's a really important here, the ratio between your weight, what wing you're using, and then what front foil.
Definitely. I recommend a bigger foil in lighter winds is going to give you earlier lift rather than going out in heavier winds. As we all know, the water surface changes considerably depending on where you're foiling in higher winds. So flatter, smoother conditions, lighter winds with a controllable foil, thicker profile, a little slower through the water, still carvy, gives you that good beginner feel while you're learning how to ride a foil, and you want some stability in there as well.
Alright, sweet. So that's the front wing. We want a nice big front wing with heaps of area. The 80-50 you're talking about is the area, big wingspan. So let's have a look at this. This is the Axis foil, as we were looking at there. The good thing about Axis, they've got heaps of different front foils. Most of the brands now have lots of different front foils.
Definitely.
So that's your front foil. Now we want to have a look at the mast as well. Starting off with a shorter mast is going to make it a fair bit easier to start.
I think so. It's quite disconcerting when you first come up on hydrofoil. You look around and you're sort of 50, 60 centimetres off the water and you think, wow, this is not going to end well, and it generally doesn't. But once you get over that, you start to want to go longer with your mast, but it's relative to the areas, if it's shallow, deep water, where you're riding.
Yeah, so I'm riding with like an 85 centimeter mast, now you're similar, and a good place to start, maybe 65, 70 centimeter mast, so you want a short mast.
Yep, definitely.
So now the next thing is a fuselage, sort of like an aeroplane where people go, it connects the front wing and the rear wing. So this is your fuselage here. Now we can get long and short fuselages. I mean, it's pretty complicated. There's so many different ways you can set up your foil. So if we get a long fuselage, what's that going to do? It's going to change the pitch, hey?
It is easier to have that pitch control. With a short fuselage, it gives you a carvier, looser feel, but if you can't control the leveling of your board and the pitching, you're going too early into a shorter fuselage, making your life a little harder than it needs to be.
So it's like almost like opposite of the mast. You want to start with a bit of a longer fuselage. Over time, you might move to a shorter fuselage.
Yep.
The next thing is the tail wing. They're pretty standard, most of the tail wings, but what are we looking for in a beginner setup for a tail wing?
Yeah, definitely something with turned wingtips to give you that stability. Without the turned wingtips, that's the stabilizing. A flat wing or a higher aspect rear wing will give you stability, but it's a lot looser. It's also trickier to upwind with a flat wing, so you want these turned up wingtips which act like stabilizers. Great for upwind, great for a nice level ride. Definitely look for a kit that you've got multiple progressions with. The Axis range, the Armstrong range, you can see how much variety there is. So start from beginners, everyone transitions through, and then you pick what direction you want to go. Really carvy or really high aspect for speed, pump and glide.
Yeah, and the last thing to consider is construction. A lot of the hydrofoils are going into the full carbon fiber construction, which is like super light.
4 kilos.
Yeah, it's really light. And then some of them have got carbon fiber front wings like Axis, and then they've got aluminium mast or aluminium fuselage. And you can change parts to get full carbon masts and things like that. So make sure you have a look at the construction of your foil, which is going to affect the price as well. All right, Tom, we've covered boards and we've covered foils. Now, probably almost the least important or easiest aspect is the wing or sail. Well, there's too many uses of it. It's a wing, but anyway, the hand wing. So what are we looking at here?
I definitely, again, recommending starting in that lighter winds, 15 to 18 knots, which means if you're an 80 kilo guy, you need a bigger wing. If you take out a small wing in underpowered conditions, you'll be doing a lot of sloshing, not up on hydrofoil. So
not that efficient with the wing when you're first starting, so you want a big, nice big wing.
Yeah.
So you can see here, this is a 6 meter and this is a 3 meter, so you can see the different sizes with the wings. Now, so you want to look for a big wing when you start.
Definitely.
There's a few different brands, got a few different features. The Duotone Echo's got the boom, which we haven't got here, but it's got like a solid boom and then an inflatable leading edge.
Yeah.
So this is the Cabrina. What are some of the features with this Cabrina crosswing?
Look, it's really simple. It's a nice stiff wing. Essentially, it gives you that sort of boom feel, but inflatable without the weight of the Duotone Echo. If you've got a windsurfing background, a lot of the guys are leaning towards things with boom handles. Essentially, you're sliding your boom, your hand up and down the boom for sheeting in, sheeting out, power on, power off. With the loop handles, you take your hand and you place it on the handle and it's on and off for power. You get very used to either way you go. Winging is starting to divide a little bit into that freestyle, into wave riding. When you're beginning, you want something that's comfortable, easy to use. You can get that in all brands, but it's really important you get the right sort of wing to weight to wind ratio.
All right, so some of the quick little features is look at your handles, how do you want to hold them. Well, you've got the solid handles here, you've got the sort of hooked handles here. Some of them got this extra sort of Y-shaped handle if that's important to you. Some people like that. Check out some of the wings got windows. Now they're a little bit heavier and you've got to be careful when you roll them up, but much better for safety, you can see where you're going. Some of the wings don't have windows. Yeah,
if you look at just these two wings, you can see there's a number of handles. With a beginner, choosing or having no choice, front hand, back hand, as opposed to where do you put your hands. Something you want to work out on the beach before you add your board or your hydrofoil. So I highly recommend spending as much time as possible on the beach before you add a board, getting used to flying your wing, rotating it, finding out where the power is.
Once you get going, you're going to want to have a couple of wings in your quiver. But to start, you want a nice bigger one that you can get out in lighter winds and get going.
Make your life easier.
Okay, so we've covered all the basic information to choose a wing foil setup. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, you got something out of it, and you've learned a bit more on how to choose your first setup for wing foiling, and we hope to see you on the water.
See you on the water.
Woo!